Hello, this is Dr. Tirrell, and in this website tutorial, we're going to take a look at some basics of working with HTML and CSS code. So the actual textual material, the structure that underpins web pages. We'll also get a quick look at how to, after making changes to code, upload your website so that it's accessible to everyone out on the internet. We're actually going to cover that second part primarily in our class workshop because since I'm not a student, I don't have access to student web space. Mine's slightly different, so I can't really walk you through that process. We'll go through that through a live demo in class. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Try and keep this tutorial shorter than they usually are. They're period length, so but then it's a hybrid class, so that makes sense. This is our reflective website project page, and we kind of get the gist of what the project is. You're making a website that's going to be a portfolio of sorts for the work that you've accomplished in this course. This will be of use to you going forward. If you decide to have a personal web portfolio, that showcases your work for occupational purposes, hiring purposes, that kind of thing. Or if you're a professional writing major in 496, your capstone course, you have to produce an online portfolio that covers your whole academic career, more or less. So this will be an easy way to sort of learn about how to do that. So it's not a big surprise in 496 and you're not starting from zero. All right, so let's take a look at the requirements here. We know it has to be on student web space. As I mentioned, we will go over that in class. We'll just take a look at it here, but I can't really do it. I can't walk you through it in a tutorial because I don't have access to student web space. We know we're going to need to change the header image and background color of the provided templates. So I'm going to give you web templates. You're going to make some changes to it, and then you can go from there. Those templates have two pages, right? A home page that has a reflective statement in response to a prompt that articulates knowledge and skills that you've gained from this course and how it might be used in the future. And then a second page, an assignments page, that has links to course projects and brief descriptions using class terminology and concepts in order to explicate how they function, okay? So this is a meta project. It's a reflective attempt. Okay, so doing everything that is listed here, that'll get you 9 points. For 10 points, which is the max possible, you're gonna have to go above and beyond that by adding additional pages, contact pages, this or that, and we can take a look at how to do that. Adding additional media like images, information, that kind of stuff, or significantly restyling the provided templates. We'll go over just some basics, but there is another tutorial that you can actually look at. It's not a video, it's an online tutorial. That goes into that a little bit more deeply. And then you'll have some background so you can do some experimentation. And that's the way you learn things. It's by experimenting and trying and seeing what changes have what effects. Okay, so here under resources, we've got a download for this program called Atom. And that's a text editor because HTML and CSS, all they are is text files. That's it. It's not like a Word file, that has all kinds of data that you don't see that's specific to Word. It's not like a Photoshop file or a audio file or anything like that. All these it's just text. That's it. Okay, so you can use anything that can edit text to compose a web page. Atom is a cross-platform. I believe it's open source. It's certainly free. Editor that's provided by the folks who do GitHub, I believe, which is made with GitHub. That's a service that handles essentially code. It handles code management. Yes, it is open source. It's MIT licensed. So this is free to download. It's cross-platform. I mean, you have to get a different version for different platforms, but it has multiple platforms. And again, all this is a text editor. You can kind of see an example here. You'll notice some of those things are colored. That's because as a text editor, it understands that some things are code and other things are just written text. So nobody actually by hand color coded that. It just knows what stuff is. You're free to use Atom if you want to download it there. You do not have to. You can use anything else. What you want to be careful about is, if you open an HTML page in Word, it's not going to show you the bare code usually. It'll show you what the web page looks like, more or less. If you try and save it, it's going to save it as a doc file, a Word file, right? So you really want to use something that's a straight up text editor. If you have access to something fancy like Dreamweaver, really that's all it is. It's a what you see is what you get text editor for web pages. So it shows you not only the code, but what it looks like sort of as a live preview. You can use something like that. I like for us to use a text editor because it decomplicates this. All we're talking about is text. That's it. There's no fancy program. It's just words. So you can go ahead and use Atom. That's what I encourage you to do, but you don't have to. Okay, I have that up and running. You can download it on your own. The thing below it here is the source templates. As we know, I'm providing templates, so web pages that you're going to be modifying. Here's where you can download them as a zip archive. And you'll notice this bolded statement here. Remember to uncompress first. Let me show you what I'm talking about there. If you download this, okay, so here it is. And if you click on it, okay, it looks like there's files in there, but this is still compressed. What that means is you can't really make changes in these and have it work. Nothing's going to work right because this is a compressed file. See how it's a folder with a little zipper on it? That means it's compressed. You can see all this stuff. That's what it's letting you do, is view this, but you can't really work with it appropriately. It's not going to do what it's supposed to do, right? This isn't right. This isn't what it's supposed to look like. What's going on here? It's because this is compressed. And this happens to students so often. You're trying to make these changes and you're doing this and that and nothing's working. It's because you didn't decompress it first. You got to decompress this thing. Let's go back to that page here. Bloop. So that's why there's this this statement here. Remember to decompress or to uncompress first. I'm putting it here. It's going to be in the tutorial check that I'm going to ask you to do. This is something that it makes me lose my mind. Just make sure to uncompress your files first. What you're looking at here, they're not real. It's showing you what's inside there, but they're not real files at this point. So you have to right-click this and you have to uncompress it. You can use extract all. That's just built into to Windows. Okay, so this is the real thing. See how it doesn't have a zipper? It's just a folder. Now we can just throw this in the garbage. We're done with it. Now we can actually work in the thing itself. Everything's going to work as it should. So one more time, make sure you decompress it. Someone's going to do it. Someone's going to use compressed files, but make sure you decompress first, or nothing's going to work right. Okay, I'm going to drag this out here because the folder was inside another folder. I don't want that. Okay, so here we go. This is what's inside it. We've got what look like web pages here called index and assignments. This thing that says style.css, and then a folder called img, short for images. And sure enough, there's an image in there of some leaves. So let's take a look at that. I'm just going to double click on index here. Okay, so this is our template. You can see we've got our two pages as was discussed, a home page that has your reflective statement. We've got an assignments page where we have the names of your projects. We've got two main projects in this course in addition to this. We've got some links here, although they don't go anywhere because, how could they? But that's the gist of it. It's a very basic setup because I want us to get a handle on how this stuff works. Oh, and we can see our leaf pictures being used up here. We've got a name. It says your portfolio title here, so we know we have to change all that. All right, so just before we dive into this, here's how these things work. Index is a web page. It's written in HTML. Assignments is a web page. It's written in HTML. And if we want to look at what those actually are, let me pop that up here. Let me show you the source of the actual text. This is all that page is. This is it. And when you look at it, at first, you may not understand what any of this means. The good news is you will, and a lot of it you can actually discount. But let's look at it. So there's a blue background. There's a picture here. Where's that coming from, right? I don't see anything in here that says make this blue. I don't see anywhere it even says anything like that. I don't see where it says use a picture of leaves. All I really see is the text content, right? My name, subheader. Yeah, okay, that's there. We've got a title, so that's there. And then we've got this statement. So that's there. What's going on is web pages, HTML, that handles the content, okay? It tells what content goes in here. Right now we've got textual content. So that's what's being handled here. The form of a web page, what it looks like, how it works, right? So the blue background, this sort of white middle part, the way that it knows to put these things up here and above this, right? Because nothing in this code tells it that. That is all handled by the CSS. That's all handled by this thing, which is attached, right? Essentially what's happening is this web page is saying, hey, here's the content, and if you want to know how it should look, just check this thing called style.css, right? Which is included. So that's the relationship between HTML and CSS. HTML handles content, right? The stuff that's actually in it. CSS handles format or presentation. They're split up in contemporary web design. Okay, so let's just start diving into this now that we understand that. And and one other thing to point out is you can see that, let me pull it up again. Both of these pages, the home page and the assignments page, they both look the same. That's because they're both associated with the same CSS, right? They both point to this same thing. And that's why it's so super useful, because we've only got 2 web pages. What if we had 100, 1,000 web pages and we wanted them to look the same? What if you wanted to make a change? What if you wanted this text to be larger or this background image to change? In an old format, you'd have to go into every single web page and make that change manually, right? You can understand how that is labor intensive and inefficient and awful, because it introduces the possibility of human error. You could forget one. You can make a mistake in one place. What CSS allows us to do is in one place, it's saying, here's how every page should look. So if you want to make a change to the font, if you want to change the background color, and these are all things we're going to do right now, you can do it in one spot, and it's going to correspond to all of these web pages. As I say, we've only got 2, so it's not a big deal. But what if you had hundreds? And websites nowadays, big ones do. They have hundreds, thousands. You have to have something like this structure in order to make that manageable and doable. You can also see we've got 2 web pages. One's called assignments. Why isn't this other one called home? Why did I call it index of all things? The reason why is index is a special name. Most of these are just names. I could call this assignments. I could make a 3rd page as we will and call it, contact or something like that. Those are just names. They can be anything. Index is a special name. Web servers know that index is a special kind of thing. What that means is when you go to a website, index is the first thing it looks for. If you don't tell it to go to a specific page, if you just go to a website, it always looks for the index page first. That's just how web browsers work. Index is a special thing. So that's why it has that name. Okay, I'm going to open this up in Atom. So I've launched Atom here. It gives you some fun tips if you just watch it for a while, but I'm not going to do that. One interesting thing it can do, and I'm going to make use of this, is if you open a folder instead of an individual file, it'll open up all of the text files inside of there. Why we might want to do that is because we're going to be working with both the HTML, the content on the web pages, and the CSS. We're going to be making changes to both. So it's just going to be easier if we could have one place that they're all open and we can make our changes there. So I'm going to open the folder and go to my desktop here. Whoops. So this is it. Yeah, let's select this folder. Okay, and now you can see it's opened them all up over here. It's got assignments, it's got index, and it's got style, that's CSS. I'm going to open all 3 of them. Okay, and now you can see how these look. one other thing I'm going to do is under View, I'm going to toggle the soft wrap. What that means is by default, text editors, they don't do line breaks. This isn't a page, it's not Word or something like that. So if we scroll over here, you can see they don't automatically break lines, because in a text editor, that's a thing. A line break is a thing. It's not just how it looks. So that can be a little inconvenient because you can't see all your text all the way over there. You can turn on this thing called soft wrap. That doesn't insert breaks. It just lets you see everything, right? So this break before might right here, that's not really there. That's called a soft wrap. You can see over on the left where it has the numbers of lines. It goes 18.19. That's because this is not a real new line. It's just soft wrapped. I can see where it's being cut off there. I'm going to do that in all of them. It's just easier to see. Probably won't need it in the CSS because their lines are very short. But I had a comment up there. We'll talk about that, but I put a comment in there because our templates are based on another template, so you have to provide attribution, as we know, for intellectual property reasons. So this is our index page. This is what the code looks like. Let me pull up the thing itself. Right, this is it. And this is the code that's behind it, right? This is everything. This is the CSS that works with it. This is where it's telling it, hey, make the background blue and make all the font this particular size and that kind of thing. And you can see kind of how this works, right? So here in the index page, you can see this stuff in the head. We don't need to mess with a lot of this. It's doing things like providing meta tags, which tells the web browser and other things sort of what kind of content it's encountering. Yeah, we won't dip into this too much. One thing that we will tinker with is right here. It says your portfolio title here. So every web page does have a title, right? You can see it up here in the tab where it says your portfolio title here. We want to go ahead and change that. So we're going to do it. I'm just going to do it right now. I'm going to call this, Jeremy Tirrell portfolio. And I'm going to save. Always remember to save. And on something like Adam, you'll notice if you make any changes, if you haven't saved it, it puts this little blue dot up here. That's telling you, hey, you haven't saved this yet. Sometimes people get into an issue because they'll make changes and then they go take a look at the web page and nothing's updated. You got to remember to save. It's a little thing, but easy to overlook. All right, I'm going to refresh this. Boom. Whoops. Oops, it's because I'm on the assignments page. There we go. And now you can see this says Jeremy Tirrell portfolio. On the assignments page, it still says your portfolio title here because, again, that's content. I haven't changed it here. But here on the home page, it says Jeremy Tirrell portfolio. Okay. That title, that's really the only thing we're going to change up here in the head. And because that's going to be the same on both pages, I'm going to change it here in the assignments page as well. Those are two separate pages, as you can see. They're pretty similar because there's not much on either one of them. But you can see they're separate things. Okay, I'm going to change my title. I'm just going to paste it in blue dot, so I haven't saved it. There we go. Now both pages, the home and assignments, should say Jeremy Tirrell portfolio. Okay. Now that hasn't changed anything up here. Right? It still says my name and subheader. We've obviously got to change that. That's going to happen here in the body. And this is where the CSS starts coming into play, right? Because if we take a look here on the index page, we've got all these different, think of them as segments in the website. Let's take a look at it. We've got a header up here. We've got this navigation bar. And then we've got this body text in the middle. And then even a footer down here at the bottom. You might have overlooked that, but it says UNCW ENG 314 template based on this other one. Because I did modify this from an existing template. So we can see that there are different elements, right, that are building this web page. You can kind of think of them as different blocks, different Legos that are kind of stuck together to make the full web page. And that's what's being addressed here in the content. We've got a body, and then inside the body, we've got different divisions. That's what div essentially means. And then the Divisions close. That's what the slash in front of the name means, right? So the body opens here, it closes here. And then we can see the HTML page itself ends. So those are the different sort of segments or divisions inside of the web page itself. And then what we do in the CSS is we tell the browser, okay, so inside of that little element, here's how it should look. So the whole body, for example, all the font should be 12 point and then one of these. Trebuchet if you've got it. If you don't, Verdana. If you don't have that, try Arial. If you don't have that, anything sans serif is great. Okay? We can see the whole background color is this weirdo number, which we don't know what that is yet, but we'll take a look in a second. Curiously, it actually is the official navy color for UNCW. And then you can see some other segments in here, right? So we've got a div called wrap, right? And you can see it's color-coded for us, so it's really easy to find. And here's where what's going on in wrap is being defined, right? We got a margin, we got a width, and we'll look at all these. We got a division called header. That's probably the one that has the picture in it, right? So let's take a look. Yeah, header. We can see it's 90 pixels tall. It's got a background color, which is black. 3 zeros is black. It's also got a background image, right? So that's where that leaf picture is coming from. Okay? So all of these sort of segments in here, they all correspond to something in the CSS that is telling the browser, hey, here's how that stuff should look, and here's where it should appear on the page. Okay, so this seems like a lot of weird, confusing stuff. The good news is we're just going to do some basic stuff, and then I'm going to set you free to experiment and bonk around however you'd like. And the good thing about using a text editor like this is it color codes stuff so you can find it super easily. It also will change the color if you make a mistake or something. See how this turned gray? It's because I messed that up. If you make a mistake, it changes the color back to gray. If I forget this, see how everything got all grayed out there? The one beneath it that says header turned gray. It's because I forgot to close the wrap div. You have to use these brackets to do that. We're not going to dive into that kind of coding. We're just going to make a few changes. But a text editor like Atom, it really helps you find problems when things don't work. Because if things are working right, they're color-coded. If something's broken, everything turns all gray, basically. Okay, so let's make some of those basic changes. I'm going to pull up this, right? We're not going to host it just yet. We're going to make the changes first. We have to change the background color and the header image. All right, no sweat. Let's take a look at how to do that. We know from the index page that the body is where that background color is being defined, right? This is the background color. You can have background colors of other segments, right? Here's a background color for the thing called wrap, and here's a background color for the header. But this is where the whole page's background color is being defined. That's why this is called CSS. It stands for cascading style sheets. The way to think of it is as they cascade downward from the most general or the biggest to the smallest and most focused. So this one's for everything. This one's for the body, which is, basically the whole page. And then within the body, we've got things like headers, right? And the wrap. Those are, if you think of it sort of like a hierarchy, this is the big thing. And then these are all smaller. And then even inside of that, right? This is inside of a header. We've got something called H1, which is a headline. It's this text, if it's in the body. So you can get smaller and smaller. So think of it as sort of like a hierarchy. You got the biggest general thing, and then smaller and smaller focused down. That's why you can have multiple background colors, right? Because not everything has this background color. The header, has black. The wrap has white, right? This is white. So the way it works is you define it generally first and then more specific, and the more specific trumps the general. So body says, make everything blue, but then this says, hey, but make this white, right? And then this says, hey, make this black, and then, hey, put this leaf picture on top of that. So the more specific, that trumps the more general. All right, so we got to change the background color. We got to change the header image. And I know this is a lot of material to understand. We're making very simple changes, and then we're going to get hands-on experience in class. So, watch this tutorial, follow along with it, but keep in mind, we're going to be doing this in class. So if something is confusing, you don't get what's happening, don't worry about it. We're going to cover it. So as I said, background color, and then it's got this number here. There's no way you'd know what that number means. I mean, I know basic ones like this is white and this is black, but this is just it's a hex code. You know, who knows what that actually is? How did I get that? You know, if you actually look at our project page here, in the resources, I provided links so that you can find those codes to put in for colors. As I mentioned, this background color just so happens to be, this is our official, UNCW's official Navy color. I got that from our UNCW's website. So I'm going to change that. So, you know, how do I find what I want to change it to? You can click this thing that says color picker, and then we'll also look at this one that says names. So the color picker, it allows you to pick a general color, and then it just provides you the code that you put in there, right? So in all of these, you can just pick one, you know, if you like that green or whatever. Or you could say, I like maybe a nice yellow. So we'll start here, but I like this one right here, this one that really pops. So here's our code. Let's just copy that. Let's put this in here and see what happens. I'm going to paste it. FFFF00. We'll save that. I'm going to go back to our page. Let's refresh that. Whoa, super bright. And because it's on the CSS, every page, you know, is going to now have this bright yellow background. Let us tone that down a bit. How about this? Okay, copy, paste, save, reload. Okay, now that's a much subtler yellow there. Maybe too subtle, in fact. Let's do one more and then we'll move on because you get the gist of this. Let's do this, 85%, yeah. Want to make sure this even shows up on the tutorial. So we'll save there. There we go. A nice, happy kind of lemon background there, okay? So that's where you change it. If you take a look at the code in your adventures, you could say, what about, you know, the other colors there, right? What about this this white? Couldn't I change that since now it's a little, the contrast is a little bit off? Yeah, sure you could. You just go to wherever that's being defined, and it looks like that is our wrap. So wrap, there's the background color. Let's find something else. How about a crazy blue? This is not going to look good, but it shows us how to do this, right? So here in the wrap, let's change that background color to this and save. And there it is, right? Those are just background colors, right? So this one's for the body. This one's for the segment called wrap. That's a common name. It means sort of the main column of content. That's where that stuff happens, right? I'll leave this here even though it's hideous, just so that we kind of understand how that functions. So the other thing I wanted to point out was if you don't want to deal with this kind of color stuff, web browsers actually understand a few names, a few special names, and you can actually use names instead of those crazy hex codes. And I've got a resource here, and it just names them, right? So let's say, you know what, for that wrap, instead of blue, maybe a nice beige. I mean, that might, with the yellow, I don't know. Oh, what about something like cadet blue? So I'm just going to copy that, paste it, cadet blue. Now, one thing is, and you'll notice this is gray, right? It's grayed out. Why is that happening? In part, it's because this is a name, it doesn't need this pound symbol or hashtag. You might notice that it's actually a pound symbol in front of it. So let me delete that. And now I'm going to save. It's just one thing to be aware of. It's not a number, it's a name. So, okay, and now we've got this cadet blue as the background of our wrap there. So if you're more comfortable with that, web browsers do understand names. And you can use a mix. You can use some named, you can use some with hex codes, and you can see the hex is actually provided right there. So the name really, it may not be super helpful because the hex is right there. You might as well copy it. The only reason you might use it is it kind of helps you find and understand. Like, I have no idea what this hex means. What color is that? I don't know. But a name, Cadet Blue, oh, okay, I remember what that. So it can be a little bit more easy to manage. Okie doke. So that's our oops. That's our background color, step one. And now we need to change this header image. So let's take a look at that. So here on the index page, it'll tell us, all right, so that's in the header. That's where that image is being invoked. Let's find that in the CSS. Okay, and so here we see this is where this picture is actually being referenced. We know it's in the image folder, and then it's this one called header.png. And again, as we've talked about, file names are so super important. Let me show you what happens if you accidentally hit, head F. You accidentally hit the wrong key and you mistype that. Let's take a look. Uh-oh. Now our image is gone. It's still there. What's the problem? Why isn't it hooking up? It's all just because I changed one letter, right? It's got to be header. Okay, so how do we change this image? Well, one thing we want to do is whatever image we want to use, we want to go ahead and just pop it into this same folder. Again, we've only got one, so it's not a big deal. But if we had a bunch of images on a bunch of different websites, you kind of want to put things in subfolders to keep them organized and tidy. Right? So IMG is a very common shorthand just for where your image files are going to go. I already prepped one. You guys, of course, will make your own image. You can take your own photo. You can use a Creative Commons and then provide attribution. You can use something public domain, and then you don't have to provide anything. Public domain means it's usable, and you don't have to provide any form of attribution. I already made one that's called water. And if we take a look at the one that's already in there, you can see it's this particular size. And it says down here, dimensions 800 by 90. That's the size that it is built to fit this code. We can actually see where that's being defined, right? Here it says wrap 800 pixels and then height 90 pixels. That's the window that we have to work with. But let me show you what happens when we change things, right? So this is 800 across by 90 down. What if I wanted this, this header to be bigger? All right, well, you can change that. Instead of 90 pixels high, let's call it, 150. Save it. Bam. Now it's that much higher. But do you see what's happening to the image? Because it's only 80, it's just putting another. It's just stacking it. I can show you if we put like a really big header, let's say 400. It's just going to stack image on image on image, right? Because it's got 400 pixels worth of height here, and so it's just popping in, another instance of that image to fill out the space. Right? What that means is when we're designing, we don't have to use those particular fixed dimensions, but that's what's in the code. If you want to change that, like let's make this narrower, 600, you can. You just have to be aware of what's going to happen. Right here, this image is actually, in theory, sticking out beyond here, but this is only 600 wide, so it's only showing that much of the image. Some of the image is getting cut off. Right? It starts in the top left, and then it's just clipping it over here. Okay, so I already prepped that image that I called water. This is it. So I'm going to put this in here. Right? This is my images folder. And now I just have to change the code so that instead of pointing to the one called header, it's pointing to the one called water. .png. So I really just have to change this. I'll save. And now, there. Perfect. Right, now, as I say, you don't have to keep this size. I also just downloaded a different image that's larger. This one is a dog. Hi there, buddy. So let's throw that in here as well. And it's not hurting anything, to have it in there, So what if I put dog, and let's see, that's a JPEG. Okay, so I do have to change the suffix. Dog, JPG. Okay, let's save that. Now it's only going to show this much, right? So, whoa, can't even see the dog, right? Because the image is so large. Well, let's make this a little bit wider, and let's increase the height here of the header. So let's make this 1,000 pixels wide, and the header, let's drop that down quite a bit. Let's say 300 and see what we can see with the dog. Now we've got top of his head, maybe a little bit more. There we go. That's fine. You can see how that works now, right? So you can use a larger image, you can use a smaller image. You just have to adjust the code. And this is going to be the same on both pages. We don't have to make any changes because it's in the CSS. So every page knows this is the image to use, is the size to use, right? You have to make that change only once, one place. All right, so we've changed the background. We've changed the header image. Boom. We've got 2 pages here. So we're ready to go. We just need to then change the textual content so that it's specific to you. So to do that, we're changing the content now. So we're not going to be in the CSS. Let's go to index.html here. We don't want this to say my name and subheader. So let's go ahead and change that. So here we are in index.html. We're going to change this to, Jeremy Tirrell. Oops. And for a subhead, we'll call this, I don't know, 314 portfolio or something like that. We'll save it, and then we'll check just to make sure everything's as we think it should be. Refresh. Okay, so that's good here on the index page. Now, when I go to the assignments page, is this going to be the same or is it going to be different, right? It's different. How come? Well, because this is content, right? So this has to change on the pages itself. It's not form, so it's not part of the CSS. It is content. So it's going to have to be changed in all of the pages, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to copy these. We'll go to assignments and just paste them here. Bloop. Okay, now it's as it should be, right? But that's something to keep in mind. This stuff is content. It's not form. So content is going to be individual to each HTML page. Okay, we've got the menu bar. That's going to be the same. We need to change the title here and then, add a reflective prompt. So I'll go to index. The title is, reflection or something better. This is my reflection. Okay, and now there it is. Got our header is changed. We've got our textual content here. Now, of course, what we'd want to do is, in response to a prompt that I'm going to provide, articulate the knowledge and skills that you've gained from this course and how they might be used in the future. So that would be our index page, our assignments page. Well, I'll keep it as assignments, but I want to change the name here. So I'll flip over to that. I'll keep assignments, but name of project 1, that would be what? Our local maps, so, whatever, bakery maps or whatever you did. Wilmington. Brief description that uses class concepts to explain how it functions rhetorically. Yeah, so, audience content, purpose. That's where that would go. Okay, we can see it's changed here. We have to change this background color because you can't see the words there. Let's just change that back to white. Okay. Oops, that's black. White is FFF, sorry. Spaced a little bit. There we go. So now you can see the title's changed. The content would go here. Now the link, right? Right now that link doesn't go anywhere. So how do I fix that? Okay, well, let's go to assignments. Here's where our link's being defined. You can see it's this little green text in here. Right now it's just a pound symbol. That is something in web design that just means placeholder, basically. It doesn't go anywhere. It means the link works. It shows up as a link, but clicking it does nothing. So what I'd want to do is get to the link of my bakery map or whatever. I think my map that I did for the tutorial was actually turtles or something. Let's see here. Yeah, turtle map. I'm gonna open that up. So I will change my code. So let's share that. It's public on the web, so let me just copy this. Okay, so that's going to go right here where the pound symbol is. And, you know, again, it's color coded, so it tells you what different things are. Notice that everything in green is pointing to stuff, basically. Paste that there. You can see it's purple and underlined because that is it's essentially a absolute web link. What absolute means is it's not referring to something inside this, like assignments. See how that just is pointing to a page in the same folder? This is pointing to something. It's got you know, everything that's needed to point to it on the internet. That's called an absolute link. This is called a relative link when it's pointing to something just in the same folder, basically. Okay, so let's save that and check out our page. Fresh. So it still just says link, right? But when I click it now, it takes me to the turtle map. And let's change that because it's not a bakery map. Turtle map. Okay. Now, if you were feeling bold, I mean, there's no reason you have to stick to that particular, you know, structure. What if I wanted this to be clickable, right? Instead of having this separate thing that says link, why not just link to it right here? Why can't I do that? Well, of course you can. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, just the URL itself. I'm going to actually remove this thing. The whole line is just going to go. And I'm going to go ahead and plop a link inside here. And I'm going to use this same nomenclature that's being used down here to insert a link. A href is equal to that. There's my link. And I close it. If you're not comfortable inserting links like that, you don't have to. This portion of the tutorial is for adventurers. So now the header itself is a link. Let's take a look at how that appears. All right, now you see what's happened? It's gotten rid of this separate link. And the thing itself, now when you mouse over it, you can tell because it's got this, you know, interactivity. It's become a clickable blue link. Here's our turtle map. So maybe that's something you want to do, right, when you're experimenting. But that's the gist of what we're doing here, right? We're just changing background color and the header image. And then, of course, you can make any other changes you want to. And we're going to have time to experiment with that. Because keep in mind, if you do the base minimum, if you check all these boxes, you get 9 out of 10. If you want 10, you have to stretch and experiment a little bit. And then we want to make sure that the textual content, you know, the actual descriptions are appropriate too. One other thing to talk about, and then we'll take a quick look at how to upload this. Again, I can't do that fully, but we will look at it in class. I did want to talk about what if you wanted to add another page here, right? How would you possibly do that? Well, here's a kind of quick, easy way. Let's go to our folder here. So we've got an assignments page, we've got an index page, and we can kind of know what the content on each is, right? You've got this thing up here. We've got this menu bar. Now that is content. That is not form. You can see it's actually being defined right here, where it says menu, and then it's got links to home and links to assignments, right? So we know that's content. And then we've got this main thing here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate one of these pages and then just make some changes, right? So let's go to our folder. Let's just do the index page. I'm going to copy and then paste. And I'm going to name this one, you know, contact. How about? Okay, and I'm going to switch over to here, and you'll see that it's actually already opened that up. That's another good thing about Atom, is I don't have to tell it, hey, go open that. Because it's in that folder, it automatically knows it's there, see? So here we've got our contact page. It's identical at this point to our index page. It looks a little different there because I haven't turned on wrapping. Let me do that real quick there. And now they're completely identical, right? So let's change this contact page. This is the same, Jeremy Tirrell, portfolio, that's the same. It doesn't say home, you know, it says contact. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's save that. And let me show you something really quick. So how do I get to it, right? It's not here. How do I find the contact page? Well, I'm going to have to add it to our menu bar, right? So how do I do that? Let's go to index here. And you can kind of see how this works. It says menu, and then it's got these different links here, home, assignments, and those are pointing to those pages. I'm just going to add another one. So I'll just copy and paste this one and then just make some changes. Copy, paste. This one's called contact, so that's pointing to the right place. And we don't want it to say assignments, we want it to say contact. Save. So this is the index page. And there it is, right? So there's our contact page, and it says, oops, and we need to update it for it to work. So that's how that works. If we go to the assignments, now it doesn't have it, right? Because we need to make sure that that's functional. Because that is content. So I'm going to just copy this whole menu thing. Go to assignments and just pop that in, right? Why chance human error? Let's just pop that in directly. I'm going to need to do it on the contact page as well. Right, now our menu bar should be the same across all of them. Home, assignments. Let's see, why didn't that work? Let's go check. Ah, blue dot. Jeremy forgot to save. Everything's fixable. Home, assignments, contact. It still says reflection here. We don't want that, do we? Contact. Oh, did I change the index page? No, that should be fine. Okay. Contact. So let's see, that's an H2. So let's see, contact. Let's see, contact. You know, and then I put email address. Email me, whoops, and spell it correctly. Me at tirrellj.uncw.edu. And let's save that. How did I misspell my name? Okay. Hey, I can't click that. Why not? Well, because that needs to be made a link. So let's go back and do that. Okay, href mail to, whoops, Tirrell J, uncw.edu. Now let's try it. Okay, now we've got a clickable mail to link, right? So that's just a brief overview of how you could add a new page, right? Basically, you can just sort of duplicate an existing one, make your modifications, and then in our case, you add it to the menu bar on every existing page. Okay, so that's that. One last thing I wanted to look at was how to upload this to your student web space. And there is a link here provided by UNCW. So what you need to do is just go ahead and take a look at that link. And on different operating systems, there are slightly different instructions. And most of these, if not all of them, assume you're on campus. In order to do it off campus, you have to bring up a VPN, a virtual private network. And we'll look at how to do this in class. As I said, these are student instructions, so I can't do this. I don't have access to the student drive. So what you do is just find yours and then do what it says, right? Just follow the instructions. And then ultimately, it'll give you web space. For me, it's here. And you can basically just drag this entire folder up there, and then it will be reachable. It would be nested inside of this thing called reflective website templates. So you may not want to do that. If you have clean web space, you can see what mine looks like here. What you would do is just drag all of these files over there. Because what that means is when someone goes to your web space, it's going to automatically search for the index file and then pull that up. I mean, you can see this is my faculty web space, and this is what it looks like, right? I've got an image folder. I've got my index page, which looks like this, right? But that's the gist of what you do. Just go to that link, follow the instructions, and it'll help you. As I say, we're going to go over this in class because I can't do it. All right, so that's the gist of the tutorial. Go ahead and experiment with this. What we want to do is start making your changes, because on Thursday, we're going to have a website workshop where we're going to walk through uploading the files. So we want to have those files in a decent state. I mean, you could actually just upload the templates straight, just to get experience with putting them on your web space. But we do want to start making changes and getting some exposure to that. I've also included here under resources a link to an HTML CSS tutorial. Go through this on your own time. You don't have to do it necessarily, but this walks you through from start to finish what all this stuff in here is, right? We made some very targeted changes, but we didn't really decrypt everything that's in these. This tutorial here will do that for you. It's this starting with HTML and CSS, and this is provided by W3C. They're the World Wide Web Consortium. They're a nonprofit that essentially manages web standards. I mean, that's the way to think of it. And this will walk you through start to finish how to write from scratch. You don't have to do that, of course, since we're using templates, but it's a really great way to learn about everything that's going on in there, right? If you have to write every line of the code, every letter, then you do have a good understanding of what's happening. So I encourage you to go through this. It'll let you learn more about HTML and CSS, and then you can make more substantive changes so that your website is more you and you're a better web designer. And, if nothing else, you can work on getting full 10 out of 10 points instead of just the 9 for checking off these boxes. All right, that's it. We're done. Long tutorial, but this is a class period. It's kind of the trade-off in a hybrid. I want you to go ahead and get into this. Start changing those templates. Make sure you decompress them first. It makes me pull my hair out. Decompress those source templates and then start making your changes. If anything breaks and all of a sudden everything looks crazy, nothing's working right, it's always fixable. We can always fix it. That's the great thing. So start playing around. On Thursday, we're going to have hands-on experience. We're basically just going to be grinding out code. And then we're going to walk through as students, because you guys can do it, how to upload to your web space so that it's just accessible out there on the internet, right? Like mine is for faculty. Anyone can get to it. We're going to figure out how to do that with your web space. All right, if you have any questions between now and then, shoot me an email. Otherwise, I will see you then.